Hi everybody out there, all my followers. Welcome to another one of my videos. This time we are working on a Ford Fiesta 1.3 and this is a 1998 model. If you watch my videos, you're gonna see that I've done a video for the DS708 on this car. Unfortunately, it didn't come out as a very good video because the DS708 could not connect to this car at all. So, but the car came to me. I'll tell you what the problem is. Obviously not going to be able to see it now because the car is cold, but basically what happened is the temperature gauge doesn't move at all. Okay, yeah, 30,000 miles, 1998, 30,000 miles. This is a good find. Anyway, as I was saying, the temperature gauge doesn't move from where it is. It just stays there constantly, so it's now working. So what I want to see is if because obviously there's an engine ECU on this, I want to see if I can get readings from that temperature sensor on live data. So if I get temperature readings, that means now the sensor is going to be probably the cluster. Something wrong in there. But one thing at a time. Not gonna go too fast. Let's gonna go here. So I have my VCM connected already. This is the laptop that runs my Ford software, and hopefully we'll have this reading the car. So ignition is on. There it is. Job done. Right, if you remember, we have been under that. If you remember, the Endura E 1.3, we've selected all this, and obviously it couldn't connect to the car. So, but here it connected straight away, obviously. So yeah, that's the car we want. VIN number. Okay, I'm gonna have to put the VIN number. Just stand by a little bit. Okay, VIN number is done. It's gonna put the RO, I'm gonna put 0. Odometer, it doesn't really matter, but why not? 30,000 miles, 720 yards. So, okay. Okay, so it's gonna scan the car. Powertrain, drivability. It's gonna check if there's any codes. Okay, so we have 2 codes. It's gonna see which one this is. Yeah, that's fine. Hang on. There's something here. There's something there. Neutral position switch. Okay, I'm interested on this as well because suspected PAP, power steering pressure switch. Power steering pressure switch. So we have a code in there for the power steering. We don't have nothing for the. I'm gonna have to look to see on this what's going on as well. I don't think that's related to that, but you know. I'm not gonna do this now. Just let me go back. It's gonna display the memory. So nothing here. Okay. Let's gonna have a look at some live tests. So let's gonna look at some live data. See if we can see the temperature in there. Powertrain, engine. Air conditioning, no it's not. EGR, that's a good one. I don't have a clue. I'm gonna have to go and have a look. So there's no EGR, but while I went into the engine bay, which is the first time I've opened the bonnet, I'm gonna show you what is causing that power steering pressure sensor fault. There is the problem. You see this? Just snapped from there. So this is the power steering pump, and obviously that wire just came off. So we'll have to get that sorted. But that's later. That's not why the car came to me. So it's gonna press enter. Okay. I think I'm gonna start the engine. Okay, engine is running. Just select everything, why not? Okay, so I'm having readings in there, as you can see. Increase that, and it tells me the voltage on the sensor and everything, as you can see. So 31 degrees, and it's going up. Let's go and have a look. As you can see, 32, 33. So yeah, the sensor is definitely working. So this information is getting into the ECU. I don't think there is a separate sensor just for the cluster. I strongly believe it's all the same, so it should take information from the same sensor. I don't even know if I can actually access the instrument cluster. So okay, so we established that the sensor is working, so that's good. So all we do now is gonna exit this. Okay. It's gonna. Let's have a look at that pressure switch sensor. I'm gonna have to fix that how to fix that wire. Just switch it off. Okay. No, I don't want to reassemble the vehicle. Okay. Okay, let's gonna see. I'll be very surprised if I can connect to this. If I could, it would be brilliant. Heck, what the heck is hybrid electrical cluster? I don't know if it's an hybrid. I don't know. Let's say yes. See what happens. It's gonna read DTCs. Okay, module is now responding. Good, so okay, try once more. If it fails, it fails. Okay, let's go back. It's gonna go exit. Come on, why I keep losing? We know. Finally. Exit. Abort. Okay. Okay, let's gonna try this again, but this time I'm gonna say no. Okay. Okay then, so I'm not gonna be able to test that needle. Oh, so it's not gonna warning lamps. It's gonna be, is anything in there? Powertrain. Nah, this is the old panel, so I'm gonna have to probably take that off and try to figure out why it's not reading temperature. Okay, it's gonna be a little bit more complicated than I thought, but at least we know the temperature sensor in the engine block or in the water system is actually reading. It's all we need to know for now. Okay, let me think what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna try to get hold of some diagrams so I can move on. Now looking at the diagrams, this is for the engine, and when I look here, there is a sensor in there. As you can see, it's connected to pin number 7 on ECU, and it's connected to ground, and that's about it. There's no other connections to anywhere. Okay, it's just where it goes. It's not connected to anything else. And when I come back, hang on, just before we do that, but look in there, as you can see, the ETC sensor, which is the last one in there, is the B24. Now B24, now we go back and we go to instrument panel. So the engine coolant temperature gauge is in there, as you can see, so it's B4 in there. And when you come down, it's a different sensor, it's B4. Yeah, so as we can see, there is indeed one sensor just for the cluster, according to this diagram. So is pin 7A goes to the sensor. I don't know which one is or where it is. I'm gonna have to look for it, but yeah, it seems to be just one sensor for that. So the sensor we saw on live data over here is actually a different sensor. So let's gonna look for that sensor. So I found where the sensor. This is another day, by the way. It's too dark. Well, I didn't have time that day to finish everything. Anyway, I found where the sensor is, and I will show you in a minute where the sensor is, how you can get it out, and all that. In this case, the sensor is actually faulty. So this is the old sensor. I have a replacement already. So that's it. But before we do that, I had to take all these off because of another problem with the car. Not to do with this, and because I knew I had to do this, what I decided to do is to test first if the gauge is actually working, because there was no point to get a sensor if we had a broken wire, for example. So to test this, obviously you could test this at the plug in the sensor, although if it was a broken wire between there, or a poor contact between the sensor and the cluster, you'd still not able to get to a definitive conclusion. So anyway, but because I had to take all these out, I decided to test this first. And the way you test this is, obviously I've plugged this side on here. The pin that comes from the sensor is number 7, so you have number 7 from the bottom, so you have 1, you count these 2 empties, so 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, 7, so up to number 7. But at the back of the cluster, oops, as you can see in there, this is the temperature gauge, that's the full gauge, those 3 contacts in there. So all you need to do to test this is get ground, okay, and all you need to do is ground the signal. So on the temperature we have B plus, which is battery, we have E from earth, and you have S from sensor. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna touch with the earth on the sensor, and what you're gonna see is the gauge is going to go up. Okay, there it is. If I leave it in there, it's going to go all the way up to the red. Okay, there it is. So that tells me that, so I took it off now. So that tells me the gauge is actually working. So that means nothing wrong with the gauge. So at this point could only be one of the two, or the wire or the sensor. So the wire, you have to get to the sensor. First I'm going to show you where the sensor is. Okay, so you're not going to be able to see very well, but that is where the sensor is. See that water in there? I'm going to try to point out. So there is where the sensor is. This is now pulled up, so I took the pipes that goes into the radiator inside for the HVAC, and the pipes goes down there, and when you actually put all these in place and when the pipe rests, there's a bracket underneath there. When you put everything in place, you can't really reach the sensor, so you really need to take it off. But what I've done already is, but you saw the sensor is working, so to prove that the wire is okay, all you need to do is to short these two wires here. These two wires is just short these two wires, and the gauge should go up. So when you short these wires, the same as you give ground to that point, and that should go up. I've tried it already and it does work, although I haven't done that really. I just check the continuity between the two pins into the ground, and everything is working okay. So that proves that the sensor is faulty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to replace that sensor and come back to see if that works, but it should work. Okay, so the sensor has now been fitted. You can't really see it, but it's right at the back underneath there, underneath the intake manifold. You can't really see it from here, but yeah, so you need to take all these off to get to it, otherwise it's quite tricky. Anyway, it's all been done. I've topped it up with more coolant water, and what I'm going to do now, oops, sorry guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to start the engine. Just take note of where the gauge is. And we're going to let it to warm up a little bit and see if that works. Okay, so the car is now running for about 10 minutes, and as you can see, the temperature gauge is now going up, which means everything is working hopefully fine. And another thing that I fixed, if you remember from the beginning of the video, which was the power steering switch, which I'm going to show you. So that has now been fixed, as you can see, and I hope you can see the difference from when I plug it in. As you could see, the idle, was just stabilized a little bit more. I believe the engine was just revving up a little bit harder, so it could actually make the fluid for the power steering with enough power for the steering to move, because it was not getting any readings. Okay, so I've put the HVAC on hot air, so it circulates the water. This is one of those that has an electric solenoid at the back, so it's really hot, so make sure I take all the air from the system. And you can see it's now nearly in there, nearly upright, so all working. All I want to see now is make sure the pressure switch fault is gone, which obviously it should have, it probably did. Let's have a look. Key on, engine off, key on, engine running. That one. We passed. Ooh, it's getting hot. There he is. No codes. It's gonna back now. Gonna do one last test. It's gonna be that one. We have one code here. Let's see what that means. Neutral position switch. So there's something for that sensor, but whatever. But at least as you can see, the power switch or pressure sensor is now gone. And that's it, guys. That little thing, I don't even know if there is an actually switch for the neutral position. Don't know if there is one, but to be honest with you, the only thing I've been asked to do on this car was that temperature, and was one of the, I believe was that one in there, that bulb for the high beams was also now working. That's the reason why I had to remove the cluster. So that's it, guys. Job done. Probably, I don't know, you might never come across a problem like this. This is a quite old car, but I hope you have learned something. I hope it's been helpful. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, like always, guys, put them below. And like always as well, thank you for watching.